What's going on, fellas? Welcome back to part 3 of this coil on plug conversion. I know in the previous video I had mentioned that there was going to be a bit of more information that you guys are going to need if you're going to be doing this conversion. So there's an issue I ran into that it's more so something I noticed as I was actually putting everything together. I noticed that when I was pushing down or just putting the coil pack in place, well, it didn't feel like the spark plug cable would, where the spark plug cable obviously snaps into the spark plug itself, but the coil on plug didn't feel like it was seating down far enough. It felt really loose even in the pushing on the seat of the spark plug itself. So that's something I noticed as I was filming the last video, and after obviously I finished the video, I went back and I just kept looking at it and it just didn't seem right to me, right? So here's what we figured out. So what we figured out is the stem on the, this is my original spark plug cable, is actually longer than the 20V VET coil pack stem. It's actually longer by about 8 millimeters when you put them together. Obviously you can see there's a little bit of a gap there when you put them next to each other, and I'm seating them right where I would have trimmed it. I measured it out and I confirmed. Somebody else mentioned it on Facebook when I posted it, that it's about 8 millimeters, which I had measured prior as well. So I did notice that. So what that affects is how far the coil pack sits deep into the cylinder and contacts the spark plug itself. So if this is 8 millimeters short, when, as you can hear, it snaps in, there's a little bit of variance in how far you snap it, and of course, so there's a little bit of play. But for the most part, it pretty much lines up to the little bottom line that the spark plug has there, right? So there you go. If this is sitting 8 millimeters shorter than that, you know, approximately, that means, to me, means that this is not sitting like this, how it should. And you can actually hear the spring inside compress. I don't know if that picks that up, but you can hear the spring inside compress when the spark plug is getting pushed onto the coil pack itself. So if it's sitting 8 millimeters high, that's about approximately 8 millimeters. I took the dial caliper out and I measured it out. But if we're 8 millimeters high on the little line there on the spark plug, close. That's a lot. And what that can cause is just a huge gap between the spark plug and the coil itself inside, or it can also cause, you know, just poor signal because there's poor contact between the spark plug and the cable itself. So that's an issue. So we're about 8 millimeters off. Now, if it was about 6 millimeters, then we'd be closing that gap, be somewhere around there. After I did some measurements prior to this, I'm not gonna give you guys specifics. I'm not gonna bore you with the dial caliper and do all that. So we'd be sitting around there. All right, so this is where that additional information comes to play for you guys. So the spark plug cable doesn't sit far down deep enough. The coil pack doesn't sit down far deep enough. Now here's where the variances lie. If you're running a VET straight out of the box with its valve cover and the VET 20V coil packs, same thing goes for those guys who are running an SR20 VE 20V straight out of the box with its standard coil packs and valve cover. This next step is not for you guys. Your coil packs will sit perfectly in there because that's how it comes from the factory, right? So you guys don't have to make any changes there. Now, for those of us, or those of you, including myself, who have a standard SR20 VE or SR16 VE, I'm assuming, not sure, but more than likely, and you're running the standard 20V or VET coil packs like I will be going with, then there's a variance, because the depth of the cylinder where the spark plug sits is actually a little deeper than it would be on a VET 20V. It's an 8 millimeter difference. Now, I don't know if the head's taller or whatever it may be, but there's that variance. I'm not gonna get that technical into it, and I'm sure some of you guys may know the difference. Sam Flay, is a really smart guy. If you don't know him on Facebook, really smart guy from the land down under, I believe New Zealand. But he also mentioned it, and So that confirmed it for me, right? So for you 20V VET guys, this step is not for you. You guys could definitely skip this altogether. But the VET and the 20V is a lot less common at the moment than the standard SR20 VE from a P11. So this step is for you guys. If you guys want to run these coil packs, then this is the next step for you guys. If you don't, then you can run, or if you want to run the same 20V valve cover that I have, slash VET valve cover that I have, then you can go ahead and run something like a different coil pack if you don't want to take this next step. So here's my solution to that. So here was my best solution for it. So what I did was I had my valve cover, well, let me see if I can raise this up for you guys. Okay, that's not bad. So what I ended up doing is I took my valve cover over to my fabricator and I asked them to machine down the holes, the lip that goes around the spark plug holes, and machine down the little bases where the coil pack itself bolts onto the valve cover. I wanted them to mill it down about 6 millimeters. So at least then, sorry about that. So at least then, the coil pack itself will sit deeper into the hole by 6 millimeters, and 6 millimeters should be more than enough to make a great contact with the spark plug itself, as opposed to it sitting, you know, 5 millimeters higher or 6 millimeters higher and still having that 8 millimeter gap and having so much exposed of that spark plug in the cylinder. And not only that, but just making poor contact altogether. Now this valve cover is all beat up, as you can see it. I don't mind. I'm going to be sending this to get recoated. I don't know what color yet. More than likely wrinkle black, just to keep it simple. It's clean. It's easier to keep clean in the engine bay as well. But so that's my solution. You guys can try to find a different solution, but this is probably the cheapest solution to keep this on a budget. If not, you guys have other options as well. So let's go over those now. So another solution that you guys might want to use is, I mentioned in the part 1 of this video, the Torx conversion kit with the R35 coil packs. So you can use that. They actually sell a Torx conversion kit. I'll put the picture up. That actually sells you the R35 coil packs for an SR20 VE P11, like I have, with a P12 VET head valve cover. So you can get it already, you know, R35 coil packs with the little spacer that they bolt onto, that'll put the coil pack itself in the perfect position for your R35 coil packs, using a P12 VET/20V valve cover on your standard P11 VE motor. Okay, so that'll solve that solution. But the only thing about that solution is it's about $550 when it's all shipped, said and done, for that conversion. Now again, on this conversion, coil packs plus the crank angle sensor, you can find them for $250. The boost and coil harness, $100 to $150. I'm not quite sure. Again, that's something you don't even have to do. So let's just say $250 on the coil pack conversion with the harness, the OEM harness that you'd wire in, and then just sending your ECU off, and then you're good to go, right? So if you want to go the $550 route of the Torx kit, you're more than welcome to do so. It's a great upgrade. I'm sure those R35 coil packs are fantastic, but for something like all motor VE that I really just want reliability for, and I'm not really planning to boost or anything like that, it might be a little overkill for me, but nonetheless, they may be perfect for you. So don't let me deter you on that. So that solves that problem, right? So now our spark plug cables will sit perfect, and I can move on to the next step, and I feel better about it going forward, knowing I don't have that issue. So we can go ahead and continue with the rest of this conversion now. I'm just waiting on the post office now to drop off my ECU from Nismatronic. That is my E5 S13 ECU that I had mentioned before. And once I plug it in, I'll go ahead and show you guys how to do the coil on plug conversion, because there's a couple things that need to change there. And also, it turns out I have to do a little, not repinning, more repinning. I just have to change the output for the BBL triggering from the ECU, because when you go to coil on plug conversion on the software itself, it changes the output, so I can no longer use the EGR output. I have to use wastegate output, I believe. John Kerr had mentioned it, or just use the AC output, which I don't have AC in the car anyway, so I'll go ahead and trigger it with that. And then we'll see if it turns on. So,
well, good luck with that.
Fingers crossed. I'm pretty sure everything else is correct, and we'll see what happens when that ECU comes in. Alright guys, so here we are in the car. I got my ECU in the mail today. The post office came through. Thank you, USPS post office. I went ahead and already updated all the NEMO files and everything like that. What I have here is my old, well, the file that was in my B13 NEMO board, right? So I have that tuned file, what the car was running on prior. I actually opened up the TCD file that was already in the NEMO ECU, or the Nismotronic ECU, whatever you want to call it. I went ahead and then uploaded my VE file. And then what John says to do next is go to click Tools. And then it says Coil Unplug Wizard right there. And then it says, well, DET manual, convert to cop. Gives you this message. Do you want to proceed? This cannot be undone. Yes. Let it do its thing. And then go to File, Save As, just so I can refer to this. E5, ECU, name it whatever you want. Post cop. File. Save that. I plugged in all the coil unplugs back onto the valve cover. I put the valve cover back in place, so everything's plugged in. Let's see if it turns on first try. All right, so the car didn't start on the first try. So the first thing I went ahead and checked was wiring, because I know that's the part, that variable that I know I did, and of course there can be mistakes. So back to the drawing board with my two pin out harness diagram, excuse me, Lances and the boosting coil one. Sure enough, obviously the car didn't start because, hello, I need that relay in. I unplugged it, but in checking that and finding that out, I also noticed that in the previous video I showed you guys that the layout of the ECU, and I actually had the pinouts upside down. So I had 8 and 9 in the 1 and 2 spot, which also means I have 22 and 31 in the 30 and the 40 spot. So really what I'm gonna have to do is unpin it, repin it correctly, because I had them upside down. And luckily I had labeled the wires I thought were 1 and 2 previously, so I know what's what. So now I also know, remember, the number 2 pin went into the number 3 slot, and the number 3 slot was open.
I don't understand a word he's saying.
So remember, I had put the number 2 pin in the number 3 slot. So basically I'm gonna have to take the number 3 pin out, put the original 3 back in that spot, right? So that's normal. All right guys, so I already did all my rewiring, my repinning. I fixed all my errors. Again, don't be like me, kids. Don't read this upside down. So just make sure, I mean, this obviously tells you, this one tells you wires facing you. This one tells you view of the ECU plug, view of the ECU without plug or harness connected. So I did have things mixed up. I did have things backwards, but everything's good now. All right, so I have my ECU hooked up. We're connected here. As you can see, the status is connected. All I wanted to do was download the file that's already in there again, which is a S13 file. I'm gonna start from scratch. I'm gonna go ahead and open, let's see, I wanna open my original VE file. It's gonna tell me it's different than what's in the ECU in a second here. Yes, so import NEMO to TCD, no. I wanna upload my current TCD file, which is my VE file, right? That my tune that I had previous, to NEMO, so it'll upload to that. Cool. And then I'll go ahead, file, save this as.